რადგიანი მუსიკალური ზღაპარი დასრულდა. სილქნეტის მხარდაჭერით 2018 წელს დაფუძნებულმა საერთაშორისო ფესტივალმა წელს თავისი ისტორიის უკვე მეექვსე თავი დაწერა და კიდევ ერთხელ ცხადყო მისი, როგორც მსოფლიო დონის მუსიკალური ფორუმის მნიშვნელობა. სადება ახლა უკვე მე-7 სეზონისთვის იწყება. მომავალ შემოდგომაზე ისევ აქ და ამ ადგილას კლასიკური მუსიკა, როგორც მომავლის მემკვიდრეობა, ყველა სტუმრისთვის მასპინძელი იქნება.
სახანძრო უსაფრთხოებისა და ვენტილაციის სრული სერვისი ISO სტანდარტებითა და სერტიფიცირებული დანადგარებით. დაპროექტება, მონტაჟი და სრული საგარანტიო მომსახურება. GXI, თქვენი საინჟინრო პარტნიორი.
დაკავდით სასურველი აქტივობებით, მიიღეთ გამაჯანსაღებელი პროცედურები და ისარგებლეთ ინდური ალტერნატიული მედიცინით. ჩვენთან გელოდებათ კომფორტი, რომელიც დაიმსახურეთ.
ჩვენთვის მნიშვნელოვანი იყო შეგვექმნა ისეთი ინფრასტრუქტურა, რომელსაც ანალოგი არ ექნებოდა. დაინტერესებულ პირებს ეძლევათ შესაძლებლობა შეიძინონ Redison Blues სასტუმრო ნომერი $150,000, რომლის ყოველწლიური შემოსავალი $35,000-ია, სადაც ასევე განთავსდება მაღალი კლასის საერთაშორისო რესტორნები მონაკოდან, მაიამიდან, პარიზიდან, როგორიცაა ჩოტომატე, ბიფ ბარი და სხვები, მაღალი კლასის ბრენდების სავაჭრო ცენტრი ლონდონიდან, ყველაზე დიდი კაზინო მაკაოდან, ყველაზე დიდი მულტიფუნქციური ივენთ ჰოლი, საუკეთესო სპა აუზებით და სხვა უნიკალური ინფრასტრუქტურით.
ჩინური ნაწარმის გამოფენა World Trade Expo 21-23 სექტემბერს ესტუმრეთ გამოფენას შეიძინეთ მრავალფეროვანი სამშენებლო მასალა, საყოფაცხოვრებო ნივთები, ავტონაწილები, ან იპოვეთ მომწოდებელი თუ ბიზნეს პარტნიორი ჩინეთიდან.
ტრანსპორტერი, GRP-ის ექსკლუზიური დისტრიბუტორი საქართველოში.
გაიცანი შენი პირადი ფარმაცევტი.
გამარჯობა, მე ვარ ნათია და მზად ვარ პერსონალურად ვიზრუნო თქვენს ჯანმრთელობაზე.
პირადი ფარმაცევტის დახმარებით რიგის გარეშე მიიღებ პერსონალურ კონსულტაციას როგორც ადგილზე, ასევე სახლიდან გაუსვლელად. მთავარია დაურეკო ან მიწერო. ნებისმიერ დროს, ნებისმიერი ადგილიდან და განსაზღვრულ დროს მიიღო შენთვის საჭირო მედიკამენტები და თავის მოვლის საშუალებები სწრაფად, მარტივად და უფასოდ. ავერსის პირადი ფარმაცევტი, თქვენი ჯანმრთელობისთვის.
ევროკავშირი ჩემთვის არის კულტურული მემკვიდრეობის დაცვა, აღდგენა და პოპულარიზაცია.
შემოქმედებითი თავისუფლება.
გარემოს დაცვა.
განათლება და გენდერული თანასწორობა.
ახალგაზრდების ხელშეწყობა.
მრავალფეროვნება, მულტიკულტურალიზმი, ადამიანის უფლებები, მშვიდობა.
მოტივაცია, ძალა და ხელშეწყობა.
მრავალფეროვნება და გაძლიერება.
თავისუფლება, ურთიერთპატივისცემა და განვითარება.
ევროკავშირი ჩემთვის არის გარდაუვალი მიზანი და აუცილებელი შედეგიც.
განათლება, ახალი შესაძლებლობები, განვითარება.
ჩემი ქვეყნის მომავალი, ჩემი ქვეყნის წინსვლის პერსპექტივა.
ვინ გახდება ბარტას მფლობელი წელს? საუკეთესო წლიური ანგარიშის და გამჭირვალობის ჯილდოსთვის განცხადებების მიღება დაიწყო. კონკურსში მონაწილეობა პირველი კატეგორიის კომპანიებისთვის და ასევე საზოგადოებრივი დაინტერესებების მქონე ყველა პირისთვის ხელმისაწვდომია. განცხადებების წარდგენისვა და კომპანიებს 31 ოქტომბრამდე აქვთ. ბარტას წლევანდელი ჯილდოს მფლობელები 13 დეკემბერს დასახელდებიან.
გადაცემის წარმომადგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი.
გადაცემის სპონსორია სამშენებლო დეველოპერული კომპანია ტექტო ჯგუფი.
როგორ ვითარდება ქვეყნის ეკონომიკის ერთ-ერთი მთავარი სექტორი? რა ახდენს გავლენას ფაცებსა და მოთხოვნაზე? რამდენად იცავენ უსაფრთხოების სტანდარტებს სამშენებლო და დეველოპერული კომპანიები და რას უნდა მიაქციოთ ყურადღება უძრავ ქონებაში ინვესტირებამდე? ყოველ სამშაბათს 5-ის 5 წუთზე BMG TV-ს პირდაპირ ეთერში მოგიყვებით ყველაფერს, რაც უძრავი ქონების ბაზარზე აქტუალურია. უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტი თათია ჩაფიჩაძესთან და გუგა კობახიძესთან ერთად. გადაცემის წარმომადგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი.
გადაცემის სპონსორია სამშენებლო დეველოპერული კომპანია ტექტო ჯგუფი.
გადაცემის წარმომადგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი.
გადაცემის სპონსორია სამშენებლო დეველოპერული კომპანია ტექტო ჯგუფი. გადაცემის სპონსორია გარდენ ჰილსი, საცხოვრებელი უბანი ძველ თბილისში.
გადაცემის სპონსორია საცხოვრებელი კომპლექსების მოვლისა და მენეჯმენტის კომპანია ბენი კომფორტი.
გახშირებული მშენებლობა და გაძვირებული უძრავი ქონება რუსთავში. ვინ აშენებს და რას თავაზობენ მომხმარებლებს დეველოპერები? 17 სექტემბრის უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტში დეტალებზე სასაუბროთ ია ტრაპაიძეს, რიტმ დეველოპმენტის დამფუძნებელს და ნატა მოდებაძეს, უძრავი ქონების ასოციაციის წევრს მასპინძლობთ. როგორია ფიტნეს ცენტრებს და საცურაო აუზებზე მოთხოვნა თბილისსა და საქართველოს სხვა ქალაქებში? ვინ აშენებს შესაბამის ინფრასტრუქტურას და რა ჯდება იჯარა? გადაცემის მეორე ბლოკში თემაზე Snap Fitness Georgias ხელმძღვანელთან, სოფო სოლოღაშვილთან და ოქტოპუს ფიტნეს კლუბის დამფუძნებელთან, გიორგი ასათიანთან ერთად ვისაუბრებთ. არქიტექტურული კომპანია Architects-ის პროექტმა მსოფლიოს ერთ-ერთი ყველაზე პრესტიჟული A-Design Award ჯილდო მიიღო. ჯილდო აბასთუმნის საოჯახო სასტუმროს არქიტექტურულ პროექტს მიენიჭა, რომლის ავტორიც არქიტექტორი დადუნა შათაშვილია. დეტალებს გადაცემის ბოლო ბლოკში ჯილდოს მფლობელი გაგვიზიარებს. რა ინფორმაცია უნდა გადაამოწმოთ დეველოპერული კომპანიის შესახებ? ტრადიციულ რჩევებს იურისტისგან ბექა თეზელაშვილისგან მოვისმენთ. ყველაფერი უძრავი ქონების და მშენებლობის შესახებ. უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტი BMG-ზე ყოველ სამშაბათს 5-ის 5 წუთზე თათია ჩაფიჩაძესთან და გუგა კობახიძესთან ერთად. გადაცემის წარმომადგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი.
გადაცემის სპონსორია სამშენებლო დეველოპერული კომპანია ტექტო ჯგუფი. გადაცემის სპონსორია გარდენ ჰილსი, საცხოვრებელი უბანი ძველ თბილისში.
გადაცემის სპონსორია საცხოვრებელი კომპლექსების მოვლისა და მენეჯმენტის კომპანია ბენი კომფორტი.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
The European Union has already said that the EU integration process is on hold, and that is entirely because the government decided to write this law the way they did, and that's a shame, said US Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasia James O'Brien. With this, he assessed the fact that the law on transparency of foreign influence is moving to a new stage of implementation. As James O'Brien explains, there are ways in which European states protect their electoral systems, but this law does not. Neil Schmid, a member of Germany's ruling coalition and spokesperson for the Social Democratic Party in the Bundestag, emphasized the importance of Georgia's upcoming elections and its path toward European integration. Speaking at a press conference at the German embassy, he stressed that it is up to the Georgian people to decide their future, and Germany will respect the election results. Schmid stressed that Bundestag representatives are demanding a 10th step to be added to the 9 already required for Georgia's EU accession, the repeal of the transparency law. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze did not meet Bundestag representatives. While asked why, Prime Minister stated that since a few months ago one of the members of the Bundestag appeared at a rally organized by the radical opposition a few hours after the meeting with the ruling team, he went directly to the stage and was involved in a revolutionary attempt. It would not be appropriate for the government to meet with them. According to him, one of the members of Georgian Dream would meet with the Bundestag delegation in order to share what they have to say, but it remains to be seen how effective this will be. From the GD side, only Nicolas Samkharadze, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of the Georgian Parliament, met with the German delegation. The delegation also met with representatives of the parliamentary opposition, local think tanks and civil society, and concluded the visit with a press conference. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Dvalishvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze announced during a briefing on September 9 the government's initiative to open a grant fund for CSOs registered in the Foreign Agents Registry. The Prime Minister noted that over 450 organizations that have applied to the Ministry of Justice for registration in the registry serve as an example of civic responsibility and prove that receiving foreign funding does not automatically mean harboring the negative interests of a foreign power. He also emphasized that the registration process took place against the backdrop of active pressure and blackmail from both Georgian CSOs and donor organizations, which threatened to stop funding them if they registered. The Prime Minister highlighted that the organizations that want to do good deeds for Georgians will receive twice as much funding as they used to receive from abroad, and all of the funded and spent money will be transparent for the Georgian people to see and judge how well the organizations are serving Georgian interests. He emphasized that grant projects will be financed according to Georgian people's interests, with specific objectives such as strengthening democratic institutions, fighting corruption, countering hybrid threats, caring for the people with special needs, protecting the environment, protecting the rights and interests of ethnic and religious minorities, and so forth. During the Q&A session, BMG asked the Prime Minister how he imagined the government-funded NGO to function as a government watchdog. Kobakhidze assured that it was in the government's interest to have CSOs that would help in the fight against corruption, for example. This is my interest personally as the head of the government. I will fund NGOs that will help me identify and eliminate corruption in government structures. As to how a government-funded organization can be a civil society organization, he stated that if an organization can be funded by the foreign government and be considered an NGO, why can't it be considered an NGO if it is funded by the Georgian government? He also added an example of such an organization, saying that the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, is funded by the US government and serves US interests, saying that this is a normal practice. As for the budget of this initiative, the Prime Minister noted that it needs to be worked out, but will be in millions, since there are more than enough resources in the budget because it has grown by 10 billion in the last 4 years. U.S. Ambassador to Georgia, Robin Danigan, on Tuesday said there has been a lot of disinformation over the last several months, and including around the foreign influence law about what foreign assistance does. Ambassador Danigan went on to say that the foreign assistance goes to Georgians, to help Georgians. These are helping Georgians with disabilities, helping young people learning English, helping celebrate and keep Georgian culture alive. This is what our assistance is doing. So it's positive, it's working together with Georgia, and it is really a positive thing, not a negative thing, Robin Danigan noted. The Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights, Michael O'Flaherty, published today a letter sent to the chairman of the Parliament of Georgia, in which he asks members of the parliament to refrain from adopting the draft law on protecting family values and minors, passed in second reading on September 4, 2024. He also calls on members of parliament to engage with national and international partners to protect the human rights of LGBTI people and combat discrimination against them, and to refrain from using rhetoric that stigmatizes these people. The Commissioner stresses that the draft law provides a legal footing for discrimination against LGBTI people and appears to be at variance with the European Convention on Human Rights. Furthermore, he expresses concerns about prejudice against these people in segments of Georgian society, including among some politicians, and that the draft law perpetuates the stigma and discrimination faced by LGBTI people by listing sexual orientation and gender identity alongside incest. Finally, he recalls that the content of the draft law is similar to the draft constitutional law on protecting family values and minors, registered in the Parliament on April 3, 2024, on which the European Commission for Democracy through Law concluded that the mere proposal of adopting this test works to further fuel a hostile and stigmatizing atmosphere against LGBTI people in Georgia. According to the well-established case law of the European Court of Human Rights, a democratic society rejects any stigmatization based on sexual orientation, said the Commissioner. Such a society is built on the equal dignity of individuals and is sustained by diversity, which it perceives not as a threat but as a source of enrichment. The foreign direct investments FDI in Georgia amounted to USD 574 million in the second quarter of 2024. That's what preliminary data shows. It is up 10.3% from the adjusted data of the second quarter of 2023. Increase in equity and debt instruments is the main reason for the growth of FDI. Equity amounted to around 101 million USD in the second quarter of 2024, which is around 18% of the total foreign direct investment. Reinvestment amounted to $451 million, and the share of reinvestment is around 79% of total FDI. The United Kingdom, reaching around $267 million in the second quarter of 2024, was the major foreign direct investor country. Japan was the second with around 59 million USD, 10.3%, followed by Malta with around $38 million, that is around 7%. The share of the three largest investor countries is 63% of the total investment. The largest share of FDI was registered in the financial and insurance activities sector, reaching 300 million USD, 52.3% in the second quarter of 2024. The trade sector was the second with USD 79 million, that's around 14%, followed by the manufacturing sector, 56 million USD. The share of the three largest sectors is around 76% of the total investment. The energy sector appears to be the most attractive area for the U.S. investments in Azerbaijan, as evidenced by the amount of foreign direct investments from the U.S. By 2022, American investments in Azerbaijan's economy reached approximately $748 million, with a major focus on the energy sector. BMG's Baku office spoke with MChem Azerbaijan, where a respondent provided insights into the ongoing cooperation between Azerbaijan and in the United States. BMG's Regional Bureau reports.
Mr. William, good day. Thank you for agreeing to answer to our questions. And firstly, I want to discuss about economic relationship between Azerbaijan and United States, particularly trade volume and American companies operating in Azerbaijan. What are the main areas in these relations? Yes, please.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to welcome you at our office at the American Chamber of Commerce in Azerbaijan. And coming to relations, economic relations between two countries, I will start from statistics. Last year, in 2023, US exports to Azerbaijan 542 million, and coming to the import, this amount dropped to 69 million. That means that our relations are based on export-driven nature relations. But coming to direct investments from US to Azerbaijan, in 2022, the total amount of all foreign direct investments to Azerbaijan were about 748 million. That means that this market, Azerbaijan, is pretty attractive for US companies and investors. Coming to our trade relations and main sectors, for sure, I have to underline energy sector because it's a main sector, and that's why we have so huge amount in export. But we have a lot of other sectors that US companies are exploring, for example, telecommunication, construction, infrastructure, agriculture, and etc. Small business companies from US are also exploring this market, in particular in agricultural sector. But if we will consider why this market is attractive for US companies, I have to underline several factors. And one of these, for sure, is our strategic geographic location, because Azerbaijan is a gateway to Central Asia, the Caucasus, and beyond. And in terms of events that are happening, sanctions imposed on Russian economy, and etc., this market is going to be a vital hub for many reasons, especially for trade. The second reason, but it's a crucial one, is a rich natural resources that is a draw for US companies to come here. The last but not least, for sure, is intention of the government to implement new regulations, to change the current legislation in order to create this market very attractive for US investors.
Thank you. And 10 questions that what's the current volume of United States investment in Azerbaijan economy, and what efforts are being made to increase these investments?
As I told before, for us, I mean, in terms of strengthening economic relations between countries, energy sector is a number one, is a priority. But at the same time, as there are new directions, as renewable energy, for example, that now attract a very big attention of US market and US companies. And coming to the trade volume, US companies historically started their involvement in energy sector starting from Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, but still now US companies are very active in energy sector as well as in infrastructure because they are involving in many modernization projects, as well as new projects dedicated to renewable energy.
What perspectives American Chamber sees in the South Caucasus in terms of the middle corridor?
Middle corridor is a very essential topic for South Caucasus, for Middle Asia, for Europe, because in terms of development of the middle corridor, Azerbaijan became the bridge between Europe and Asia. And all countries that are involved should collaborate very strong between each other in order to create this middle corridor. Because when we are talking about the middle corridor, it's not a matter of the trade. It's not a matter that we are talking about millions of consumers. First of all, it's a very big affection to the economic growth of the South Caucasus and all countries that will be involved and engaged. I'm pretty sure that all countries are very interested in development and establishment of that middle corridor. As AmCham, we are also trying to promote this topic because we are we're members of the AmCham Europe. We have very strong collaboration with other AmCham offices from other countries, and middle corridor is also for us is one of the strategic points to discuss. So we try to do as much as we can in order to promote it and to collaborate closely with the Azerbaijan government on that topic.
Mr. Salvini, finally questions about AmCham opinions of future. And how can the whole region improve attractiveness in terms of investment? And how do you see the entire region in the future?
I suppose there are some features, some factors that we should take into consideration, not Azerbaijan, I mean the whole region. Regional stability for us is the number one.
Yeah.
And tensions between Azerbaijan and Armenia for us are important because in a peaceful way we can totally affect to the economic growth of both countries.
Exactly.
And the South Caucasus in the whole. Coming to another feature for sure is the improvement of infrastructure that is aligned to the middle corridor as well, because as far as we will improve infrastructure, I'm talking about all countries that are engaged in that project, that means we can achieve economic opportunities for all countries that will be engaged in the middle corridor. And last but not least, maybe economic diversification. You know that the major sector for us is the oil sector.
Yeah.
But due to the roadmap of the state and taking into consideration changing nowadays everything in the world, I'm pretty sure that economic diversification of our country will positively affect to the economic growth of the country in the whole. And coming to the end, in terms of the future, you know that AmCham is deeply engaged in changing legislation because we have a white paper, it's a product that we're publishing thanks to our 10 industry committees. And that white paper is a set of recommendations and suggestions to the relevant state structures in Azerbaijan, where we try to change the legislation to incorporate new regulations in order to become this market more attractive for investors. I'm not talking about US investors, I'm talking about investors in general. And very positive fact is, after presentation of the white paper to the relevant state structures, we are organizing working groups together with state bodies representatives and our experts, where they are starting to discuss and brainstorm about what recommendation is very critical and how we can implement together. We are somehow ambassador of the private sector, their recommendations and their suggestions. And due to our statistics, last year white paper, 30% of recommendations were accepted by the government. For us, it's a very good sign. So we're going to continue it.
This week's business news and outlook has been compiled for you by Natia Taktakishvili.
Nicholas Tsinsadze, General Director of Galleria Tbilisi, declares that the turnover of shopping mall increased by 5% during the summer. As of him, due to the fact that the shopping mall is located on Russouli Avenue, the majority of customers are tourists. Tsinsadze notes that new brands are also interested in entering Galleria Tbilisi. We have 2 times less space compared to other shopping malls, despite the fact Galleria Tbilisi has more than 100 brands. 20% of them are exclusively represented in our shopping shopping mall. After the pandemic, rental prices have been rising daily basis on the demand. At this stage, the average price of 1 square meter is $50, said Nicholas Tinsadze. According to the general director of the company, expectations are much better than in previous months because the best period for the retail sector is autumn and winter. In September, the growth trend is already noticeable and the increase will likely continue due to the start of school. Lashapapashvili's real estate and investment management company Radix opens boutique hotel Samzeo in Quareli. The hotel under the same brand has been operating in Tusheti for several years and this will be the second hotel in a row. Nanu Ursha, the director of Horeca Direction at Radix, declares that the official opening of the hotel is planned for November and the investment amounts to 40 million lari. Samzeo Quareli combines several buildings including 67 rooms of different categories divided into 3 buildings and a standalone restaurant with Kekedian traditional dishes. Our guests can enjoy an outdoor pool, a bar and sauna, Urushadze said. According to her, the hotel area is being developed gradually and soon children's entertainment space, contact to tennis courts will be added. The company cannot yet specify what the cost of accommodation in the hotel will be and explains that the price in the hotel business is a dynamic process and depends on seasonality, occupancy rate and etc. Shio Khetsuriani, General Director of Arki, declares that in 8 months 2023, the company sold more apartments than in the same period of 2023. As he said during his visit to TV program Real Estate Prospect, until now, the demand for their project exceeded the supply. As for the prices, the cost increased by 7% annually. The company does not expect any discounts. Real estate prices were growing for the first 8 months of this year compared to the same period last year. There were some ups and downs due to the known events, but in July and August there was some progress and the market was trending upwards. Prices increased by over 7%. We really don't expect a decrease because there is no tendency for this. Demand is growing. As for the competition, the environment is much more competitive than it was 2 or 3 years ago, which is only good for the customers, Shio Khetsuriani told BMG. Avtandil Abdushalishvili, the founder of the private school Shamnabada and a member of the board of Association of Private Schools, declares that the tuition fees in private schools have increased by 10 or 15% on average for the new academic year. As he explains, one of the main reasons for the price increase was the growth in teacher salaries. As the representative of the sector say, due to the increased salaries in public schools, it's difficult for them to compete with the state in terms of human resources. In our case, the private prices have increased by 10% and it's the same for other schools. There is an increase of about 10 or 15%. The state is a direct competitor of private schools, so we can't openly say that we are in open competition with the state. We had to review the salary policy, which automatically led to increase the prices for the customers, says Abdushalishvili. Gigi Siswadze, the executive director of the Association of Private Kindergartens, Mnati, declares that the demand for private kindergartens has increased for the new academic year, which is determined by the current economic situation in the country. According to the director of Mnati, the value of private gardens increased as a result of the regulation adopted by the state. Tariffs have increased from 600 lari to 800 lari. The state regulation provides high safety and nutrition standards in line with Europe. Accordingly, the service has improved, which is related to additional costs, explains the head of Association of Private Kindergartens. Gigi Siswadze also talks about the challenges of private kindergartens. According to him, there is still a shortage of qualified personnel in the market, so the association plans to retrain personnel for the next year. The number of customers has increased by 150%. Nika Kandelaki, commercial director of wine company Crash 525, told BMG. There is a good harvest this year, so we expect to process up to 150 tons of grapes. The number of customers increased by 150%. This year we have 17 customers, including foreigners. Some want Query wine, while others prefer classic wine. We have customers from Kakheti, Kartli and Imereti, Nika Kandelaki says. According to Kandelaki, at this stage they are actively communicating with international market, which are likely to export from the beginning of the next year. We don't export our wine yet, but we have negotiations with several countries, including America, Poland, and Baltic countries. We hope that our products will be available in these countries at the beginning of the next year, Nika Kandelaki said. Ragen Uptown Development, the owner of largest shopping center Tbilisi Mall, has published its financial report for 2023. According to the document, over the past years, the shopping mall's revenues increased by 12% to 29 million lari. At the same time, the number of customers of shopping center increased from 6 million to 7 million. The shopping facility includes 4 floors with 190 shops and 38 storage spaces. Guests of Tbilisi Mall can enjoy cafes and multi-level parking lot. The leasing department of Tbilisi Mall is actively working to add new brands as well, which will increase the interest of the new customers. Compared to 2022, in 2020, the sales of Tbilisi stores increased by 9% to 300 million lari. The company's management report says Tbilisi Mall was opened in 2011. The mall occupies 200,000 square meters, which includes international brands, fast food establishment, a hypermarket, Carrefour, a children's entertainment facility, a contact cinema, cafe, and 2,000 parking lots. Natia Ubusidze, the founder of confectionery Pussy, declares that the company had to adjust the prices recently due to the increase in the price of raw materials. According to her, confectionery has undergone a crisis period because summer is difficult for business in Tbilisi. However, the company did not stop developing and was able to add new products in the assortment. Given that the summer period was difficult for our business, it can be said that we did not get through it easily. However, we diversified the assortment of confectionery. We added ajarian khachapuri, sandwiches, desserts, and etc. In addition, we added wedding cakes. In this regard, we already have orders in advance, said Ubusidze. According to her, she's looking for additional staff in the pastry shop as she plans to spend less time in the kitchen and work more on business development. However, it should be noted that it's not easy to find staff in the confectionery field, says Ubusidze. Puss is located in Simon Kandelaki Street in Tbilisi. The initial investment for its opening was 35,000 lari. Currently, 2 people are employed in the cafe. In the near future, it's planned to employ 1 more person.
According to the PMCG's research, youth employment in Georgia during 2020-2023, the contribution of youth, those aged 15 to 24, to the Georgian labor market declined. In particular, youth's performance in key labor market indicators decreased over the reporting period, even though during this time the proportion of youth among the total population aged 15 and older remained stable. PMCG says the decreasing youth labor force participation has been driven by immigration. Between 2020 and 2023, a considerable number of youth left the country, most of whom were unemployed and seeking jobs. The research also shows that the increase in higher education correlates with a drop in youth labor force participation. Many youths felt discouraged from entering the workforce and instead chose to pursue higher education, as evidenced by the increase in the number of students in Georgia. According to the study from 2020 to 2023, some distinct challenges affected youth employment. Specifically, the noticeable decrease in the number of employed youth in this time could be at least in part attributed to barriers such as limited part-time job availability and working terms and conditions not aligning with youth preferences and educational commitments. In Georgia, part-time job opportunities are lacking for youth, with only 9% of employed youth engaged in part-time employment in 2023, well below the EU average of 33%. PMCG believes this imbalance significantly impacts youth employment outcomes, essentially forcing many to choose between educational attainment and securing stable employment. One of the findings of the study highlights that approximately 1 out of every 5 young young persons in Georgia neither works nor studies. Even though some progress has been made in integrating more youth into education, the high rate of those categorized as not in education, employment or training, NET, compared to the EU average demonstrates that this is a persistent obstacle for youth in transitioning from education to employment in Georgia. In 2023, only 7% of youth worked and studied, while only 10% of youth enrolled in education had a job, suggesting that young people struggle to secure employment while studying. Between 2020 and 2023, salaries for youth were on average 35% lower compared to the working age population. Generally, salaries in the youth category increase with age and are closely linked to higher educational attainment and experience. PMCG's study finds that gender disparity has a persistent effect on youth employment and educational choices in Georgia. More young men enter the labor force compared to young women, who also suffer from a widening gender pay gap on the labor market. Further, in 2023, there was no significant difference in youth labor force participation between rural and urban areas in Georgia. However, over the covered period of the entire working age population, urban areas exhibited higher unemployment rates compared to rural areas, except in 2022. According to the PMCG research, youth employment in Georgia, is gaining increasing shares in service-related sectors and positions. Although agriculture remains the largest employer of youth in Georgia, its share decreased by 7 percentage points from 2020 to 2023. Meanwhile, during the same period, the share of service and sales workers increased, a trend not visible in other age categories. How did the economy perform this week? Our short overview of this week's economic news and outlook.
On Wednesday, the Monetary Policy Committee of National Bank of Georgia decided to keep the monetary policy rate unchanged. The monetary policy rate stands at 8%. Inflation in Georgia remains below the target of 3%. Headline inflation recorded 1% in August 2024, while the core inflation stood at 0.9%. The gradual decrease in inflation of domestically produced goods and services largely contributed to the maintaining inflation below the target. This reflects the normalization of long-term inflation expectations in the economy, driven by consistent monetary policy adjustments during both tightening and easing periods. Although economic growth has exceeded expectations, demand-side pressure on inflation remains relatively weak. According to the MBG's assessment, this indicates an acceleration in potential growth. Other things being equal, the current macroeconomic forecast suggests that low inflation will persist in 2024 and stabilize around the target level in the medium term. The National Bank of Georgia continuously monitors ongoing economic processes in the financial markets and will use all available tools to ensure price stability, the MBG stated. The next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee will be held on October 2023. Tbilisi Mayor Kakakaladze announced ongoing efforts to enhance the city's public transport system by introducing new 18-meter buses. At a recent government meeting, Kaladze highlighted that these buses will operate along corridor planned based on the international studies and passenger flow needs. The city's current bus fleet has expanded to 1,935 units, all meeting the Euro 6 emission standard, contributing to improved ecological conditions. The Ministry of Regional Development and Infrastructure of Georgia on Tuesday said the construction of a two-lane 33-kilometer-long section of domestic north-south road corridor has been actively ongoing. The ministry noted the works included installation of a lighting system, 5 bridges and tunnels, and rehabilitation of a bridge, with the project also including of a new 5-kilometer access road to the country's ski resort of Gudauri. Intensive works of setting up engineering networks, power suppliers, notification, security and other necessary systems are underway. Additionally, significant advancements have been made in the building of access road, which will include the construction of a highly innovative bridge, the first of this kind in Georgia, Karseladze said. 1.2 billion Lari project is co-financed by Georgian government and Asia Development Bank, with the tunnel construction also supported by the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The construction of the road is scheduled to be completed in stages between 2024 and 2025. The Georgian Prime Minister announced today that the Georgian government will allocate additional resources to purchase Saperavi grapes at 10 locations for 1.5 lari per kilogram. The decision follows a record forecast for this year's grape harvest, which is expected to reach 300,000 tons. Speaking at the briefing, Kobakhidze emphasized the government's continued support for over 20,000 wine growers to ensure their crops are sold on time. As of today, 80,000 tons of grapes have already been processed, including 35,000 tons of Saperavi grapes, making a record harvest for this variety. Due to the challenging climatic conditions, there is an urgent need to process the grapes quickly to prevent spoilage. The rising demand from growers prompted the government's intervention. In addition to purchasing Saperavi grape at 1.5 lari per kilogram, the government will compensate wine growers who have sold their grapes for less, covering the difference to ensure fair prices. The government is committed to ensuring the wine growers receive adequate compensation and that the processing of grapes happens without delay, said the Prime Minister. Georgian Economy Minister Levon Davitashvili highlighted the country's role in ensuring Europe's energy independence and security and for the growth and development dynamics of domestic energy sector during an event of Energy Works Day on Tuesday. Georgia's role is crucial in ensuring Europe's energy independence and security, and transit volumes are on the rise, leading to a growing economic impact for the country, he said at the event. We are continuously enhancing our energy independence and security on a daily basis. This not only strengthens the sector but also establishes a firm foundation for the future sustainability and economic progress of our country. Over the coming years, we will persist in our state policy to actively support and further bolster our energy independence, creating a stable and predictable environment for investors and businesses across various sectors, Davitashvili said. The minister highlighted achievements in the oil and gas sector as well, telling the event international tenders had been initiated to invest in new license blocks in the oil and gas sector, which he said would boost investment. The South Caucasus pipeline continues to play a vital role in transporting natural gas from the Caspian region to EU countries, he added. The rehabilitation of Vera Park in Tbilisi has started. Mayor Kakakaladze, along with deputies Irakli Bendeliani and Andrea Basilaya, inspected the initial work. The project includes renovating park infrastructure, adding new amenities such as playgrounds, dog walking area, and improving drainage and irrigation systems. Accordingly, the chess place, a cultural heritage site, will be renovated. The park will be closed during the renovation works.
ADB president announced his intention to resign. President Masatsugu Asakawa has announced his intention to step down from his position effective from February 23 next year. ADB president Masatsugu Asakawa has announced his intention to step down from his position effective from February 23 of 2025. In his official statement of intent of resignation, President Asakawa stated that after careful consideration and reflection, he believes it is time to step aside and make way for new leadership with fresh perspectives and renewed energy. During President Asakawa's presidency, ADB has confronted unprecedented challenges, most notably the global health crisis triggering by the COVID-19 pandemic. In response, ADB organized a $20 billion USD response package to meet the urgent needs of vulnerable communities, improve healthcare systems and promote economic recovery in its developing member countries, DMCs. According to the president, ADB followed this with the Asia-Pacific Vaccine Access Facility, ensuring the availability and distribution of vaccines across the region and safeguarding the health of millions. President Asakawa says a key focus of his leadership has been climate change. ADB has been repositioned as the climate bank for Asia and the Pacific with an ambition to mobilize at least $100 billion in climate financing by 2030. This initiative is catalyzing significant investments in mitigation and adaptation efforts, as stated in the letter, including through the private sector. ADB's capital management reforms, especially the update to the capital adequacy framework to the president, are set to unlock an additional $100 billion USD in lending capacity over the next decade to support a broad range of development efforts, including greater concessional resources for vulnerable members. ADB has also helped strengthen domestic resource mobilization in its DMCs, providing critical support to enhance their capacity to generate domestic revenues through improved tax systems, financial sector reforms, and public financial management. President Asakawa believes, according to him, recognizing the critical role of the private sector in driving economic growth, ADB instituted a shift towards private sector development, seeking to catalyze private investments for development, impact, inclusive and sustainable growth, and climate actions that promote low-carbon pathways. ADB's president put special emphasis on the Asian Development Fund in his official letter to him. ADF has also been pivotal in bolstering resilience and sustainability in poorest and most vulnerable DMCs. President Asakawa extended his gratitude to ADB's donors for supporting the $5 billion replenishment of ADF 14 and technical assistance special fund last May. These funds will support those who need it most, including women and girls, reinforcing ADB's dedication to inclusive and sustainable growth. President Asakawa writes, adding that regional cooperation has been a cornerstone of ADB's efforts to enhance economic integration and manage shared challenges effectively. ADB supported initiatives like the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program and the Greater Mekong Sub-Region Program have supported cross-border infrastructure projects, enhanced trade, and promoted regional public goods that are crucial for shared prosperity. In response to calls for MDB evolution, ADB's midterm review of Strategy 2030, President Asakawa believes will set the future direction for ADB, while its corporate results framework will keep the bank focused on strategic priorities, and the new operating model will further enhance ADB's agility and responsiveness, ensuring that the bank delivers targeted and impactful support to its DMCs. And that's all for today. We will meet next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Before that, you know what to do. You have to follow us on bm.g for more news and outlook on business and economics in Georgia, in region, and beyond.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.